future homeowners, this video is for you. I know that buying your first home can feel a little bit like a roller coaster. It can be exciting and overwhelming and honestly probably a little bit scary. But don't worry, I have got you covered. And in today's video, we are doing part 2 of your first time home buyers crash course. I'm gonna go over everything that you need to know as a first time home buyer, from finding the right neighborhood to navigating offers, inspections, and financing. So whether you're looking for your starter home or you're planning for a more permanent, maybe forever type setup, this guide will help you avoid common pitfalls and help you get ready to make that big move once you are ready. So let's go, let's move into our new home. Hey guys, I'm Daphne, your boss lady realtor here in Austin, Texas. And if you are thinking about buying or selling a home in the Austin area, you can contact me. My contact information is in the description below. You can also set up a direct one-on-one video call with me. Just follow the link in the description. Also, if you are thinking about buying or selling a home anywhere else in the US, I've got realtor partners all over the country and all over the Americas, Canada, Mexico, and South America. So if you need to buy or sell a home elsewhere, reach out and I'll get you connected with somebody who's absolutely phenomenal. Okay. So let's start. Our housing market in Austin right now is presenting a ton of opportunity for literally anybody, but I feel like especially for first-time home buyers. There's a lot of homes on the market and we have a lot of negotiation power. Part 1 of this video, which I will put the link to somewhere here on this screen, we covered the financial portion of buying your first home. We talked about how to go into mortgage calculator and take a look at what your monthly payment might be. Also about talking to a lender and starting that conversation so you know exactly what to expect when you are ready to start shopping for your home. Today we're going to jump into the more technical side of it and explain exactly how we write offers, how offers are put together, and what you can expect throughout the actual purchase process all the way to closing. So with that, let's just jump right on in. I ended the first part of this video series with a buyer's consultation. I'm gonna briefly explain what that is again at a high level in case you didn't watch that video. When I do a buyer's consultation with a new home buyer, whether they are buying their first home, second or third, etc., I carve out about an hour at a time so I can ask a bunch of questions and really get to know the home buyer. I wanna know what your lifestyle is like, what your plans are for this home, are school districts important? We wanna know what your thresholds are for repairs, if any, or maybe you need a home that is 100% ready to go and turnkey so you can just move right on in tomorrow. In part 1 of this video series, I did talk in a lot more detail about the buyer's consultation. So if you haven't watched that, please go watch that part so I don't have to continue repeating myself. Step number 2 is getting pre-approved by a lender. In part 1 of this video, I also talked about the pre-approval process and what all is entailed. When you talk to a lender about getting pre-approved for a home, whether it's your first home or maybe it's an upgrade home for you, they are going to look at your entire financial picture. The lender is first going to look at your credit score, they're going to look at your income, they're going to look at any debt, they're going to look at your work history, savings, living history, etc. All of that to compile all the information that they need to tell you exactly what price range of home you need to be looking in. This is something that I covered in a lot more depth in part 1 of the series, so if you haven't seen that, please go back and check it out. I've got a ton of information there. Step number 3, I think, is probably one of the more exciting steps. It is starting to look at homes. So once we have figured out what neighborhoods we want to be in, what is important about a particular neighborhood for you, what the plans are for this home, and what price range you need to be in, then we can start looking at homes. In order to pinpoint a list of homes that we want to look at, usually I will go back and forth via email with my home buyer client, and we'll put together a list of homes that they want to look at on a particular day. If you are new to Austin, or if you're new really to any city, I typically recommend looking at no more than maybe 5 or 6 homes per day. It doesn't sound like that much, but they can blur together, especially if you're not familiar with an area, and it can get very overwhelming. So let's say we're gonna go look at a list of 5 homes. We meet at the first home and then we kind of caravan around to the other homes. When I have a home buyer who shows interest in a particular home, I'll be deliberate about paying extra attention to all the details of the home. I like to see if I can tell the age of the roof, age of the AC system, and the water heater. We want to look for other signs of aging or maybe structural issues that could potentially come up in an inspection. I try to see if we can see any signs of foundation issues and sometimes even plumbing. Now, I'm not a contractor and I'm not an inspector, but I have seen hundreds of inspection reports and I've remodeled a bunch of homes. So generally I know what's going to come up in an inspection and I can generally give a price range of what these items could cost if they come up. I do this because I want you to be prepared for your inspection report. We really want to minimize surprises as much as possible. Of course, like I said, I'm not a contractor and I'm not an inspector, so there's things that I will definitely miss from time to time, but I think it's important to have a general idea of what could potentially come up as an issue. Now, there's been plenty of homes that I've been in with home buyers that are just in terrible condition, and I can tell off the bat that it's going to be extremely expensive to have these homes repaired. And I'll flat out tell my clients, don't buy this house. This is going to be a money suck for you, and you might end up upside down instead of with equity down the line. Normally with home buyers, we'll look at 8 to 12 homes before they end up choosing the one that they want. I feel like 50% of the clients that I work with will usually find the home that they like on the first day. Sometimes we have to go back on day 2 or 3 to make sure that that's the home that they want, but seeing the home that you want on day 1 actually is not that uncommon. I know a lot of times people find the home that they like immediately and they're like, gosh, I feel like I'm making this kind of impulsive buy and I'm just kind of acting on emotion. But I guess on the opposite side of that is that home buyers are so educated today and people do so much more homework today than they have in the past. So by the time that they're actually in a home looking at it, they already know what they want and they already know what the neighborhood and other options look like. So if something seems like a good deal and like it's a good fit, it more than likely is. Now, if we've looked at more than 12 homes and my home buyer can't make up their mind, we usually go back to the drawing board and talk about priorities and what's still important to them. It could be that we've been looking at homes that are maybe just not the right size, or maybe they're just not feeling the flow of it, or it could be that they are honestly extremely indecisive, and at which point I will often bow out. Because if somebody can't decide or have a general idea of what they want by around 12 homes, then they're probably not ready to make a move. There's always exceptions, you guys. Don't come at me at the comments, but these are patterns that I have seen repeat themselves at least in the 12 years that I've been a realtor here in Austin. All right, so now we get to the meat of potatoes of it, or more the meat, because I feel like the meat is more valuable than potatoes. So once you find the home that you like and you decide you want to make an offer, there's a lot of things that come into play pretty quickly. One, I will reach out to the selling agent to see what I can find out about the home as well as the seller's situation. Once I have that information, I report back to you, and then we run comps, or we do a comparative market analysis where we look at similar homes within the same area that have sold in the last 180 days so we can see what the actual market value is for the home. It's entirely possible that a home be priced too high and we get to offer lower. It could be that the home is even priced correctly or potentially a bit low to get it moved in this market. But it's important for you to know as a consumer the exact value of the home that you are wanting to buy. We can always negotiate. That door is always open. And at the same time, it is important to have a clear idea of what the market is doing in that neighborhood. Once we decide what we want to offer and the terms that we want to offer, then I send over a bunch of documents your way with a brief explanation of what they mean. These are the formal offer documents. In Texas, or in Austin anyway, we have to submit an actual offer to the selling party in order to have our offer seriously considered. We send over our offer with the offer documents along with your pre-approval. All right, so when we make an offer, we have to submit an actual offer document. I'm going to pull up the main documents that we need when we are making an offer, and I'm going to explain them at a high level. The main document that we're going to be looking at is a 1 to 4 family residential contract. There are 22 paragraphs in this entire contract. Not all 22 are pertinent. There's a handful that are, and I'm just going to go over those very quickly. If you have a question about any of this as I'm going through it, please just leave a comment in the comment section. I'm more than happy to dive into detail and explain everything that you are curious about. Okay, so let's check it out. Paragraph 1 of this contract. Paragraph 1 includes the parties, that is the buyer and the seller information. Paragraph 2 is the legal description of the home. This is information that you can find in the tax record. This is not something that you need to do as a homeowner. We as realtors fill all of this out. We know where to find out this information, but this information obviously that we need to include. Paragraph number 3, this specifies the price of our offer. So there we have our offer price, your down payment, and then the sum that is being financed if you're financing. And there is a line for each respective portion. We're going to jump down to paragraph 5. Paragraph 5 outlines the earnest and the option money and who it goes to. Earnest money is usually 1% of the sales price of a home. So let's say you're buying a $600,000 home. Your earnest money is going to be $6,000, and that's going to go to the title company. Title company holds on to that earnest money, that $6,000, until closing. If everything goes as planned and we close, you get that money credited back to you at closing. The second portion that it outlines here is the option fee. When you are buying a home in Texas, you have an option period, which is anywhere from 5 to 7 calendar days in which you have to do your inspection and any other negotiations if necessary. This option money usually costs about $500, and that $500 goes to the seller. Now, during that option period, you can back out from the contract for any reason whatsoever and get your earnest money, your 1% back, but the seller gets to keep that $500. A side note, you can also back out of the contract after the option period, but if you do, you're going to lose your 1%, your $6,000, that goes to the seller. So everything becomes very time sensitive the first week after going under contract. We are in constant communication, and deadlines and dates are outlined very clearly from the start. At no point will you be left wondering, when is my option period up? What am I supposed to do? No, like, we go through all of that exactly as we need to. Paragraph number 6, this talks about the title policy and the survey. The title policy doesn't necessarily apply to the home buyer. A title policy is essentially an insurance that the home seller is buying or it's paying for from the title company to ensure that the title is clean. That's at a high level explanation. I'm not a title officer, that's just what I understand. And you will see in paragraph 6 that it says whether the seller or the buyer is going to be paying for that. Usually the title policy is 0.5% of the price of the home. So for a $600,000 home, we're looking at about $4,200, give or take. In a buyer's market, the seller pays for their own title policy. In a normal market, the seller also pays for their own title policy, and if for some reason we were to go back into a really crazy seller's market, then it becomes a lot more negotiable whether the buyer or the seller pays it. Paragraph 6C, it is talking about the survey. The survey is a legal drawing of the property, outlining where the house sits on the property along with building lines, easements, driveways, sidewalks, all of that. If you're financing a home, the lender will definitely require one. Here in this portion of the contract, it says whether the buyer or the seller will be paying for a new one if one is necessary. Usually we can end up finding the survey from previous sale of the home. Every now and then we do have to get a new one. Of course, who pays for it is negotiated up front. In this market, sellers are paying for a new survey if necessary, and they can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000. Price can go up though, depending on the size of the property. We're gonna jump down to paragraph 7B. It talks about the seller's disclosure. The seller's disclosure is a document. It can be anywhere from 3 to like 8 or 9 pages where the seller goes over all the information that they know about the home, whether it's been updates or repairs that they've made or any deficiencies that may currently exist in the home that they know about. We need to have the seller's disclosure at the beginning of the transaction and take a look at it before we submit an offer so we know exactly what we're walking into. Now, sometimes sellers don't know 100% what is going on in their house, which is why we get an inspection. But at least that way, it shows good faith and it shows us that the seller is telling us what they do know and what they are aware of. We're gonna jump down to paragraph 9 where it says closing. That is where we put the closing date that we are offering. Normal contract to close time from the day we come to an agreement with the selling party to our actual close date is typically 30 days. We can do it in 2 weeks if necessary. Every now and then you see it go a little bit longer, but generally 30 days is the cap. I'm gonna keep going. You guys, if you have questions, please make sure to leave a comment in the comment section. This is a lot of information and it can seem overwhelming, but it's really important to pay attention and make sure you understand, because that way when you're ready to go and you're ready to submit that offer, you know exactly what the contract is saying and you can just send it right on off. So paragraph 12A1B, this is where we specify closing costs that we are asking the seller to pay for us. Depending on the seller's situation, depending on your situation, the type of loan, the house, etc., we might be able to ask the seller for a couple $1,000s of closing costs to be covered, or we could ask the seller to cover all of your closing costs. If you don't know what closing costs are, it's basically a fee that is incurred by the buyer that is made up of lender's fees, title fees, property taxes, and property insurance. Most of the time that sum comes up to be about 2–2.5% of the price of the home. So if you can get the selling party to pay that for you, that's extra money in your pocket. Personally, when we are in a buyer's market, I look at these kind of as junk fees and try to put as much of that burden on the seller instead of the home buyer. There are plenty of expenses when you are buying a home, and I don't think you should have to pay your closing costs in a really strong buyer's market. We jump down to paragraph 22. Paragraph 22 essentially is where we say what are other addendums and other documents that we have attached to this offer. So we just check the box of any that might apply, or if there's something that's not on this list, we would just essentially write it in. Paragraph 23 specifies if you are working with an attorney. In Texas, or in Austin anyway, we really don't use attorneys when we are doing a real estate transaction. That's something that really we tend to see more like in New York or some other northern states. For us in Texas, the title company, I guess, sort of fills that role because they are essentially the ones taking care of all the legal proceedings in the sense of changing the name from the current owner to the new owner, making sure the title is clean, etc. The next document that we're going to turn in with our offer is a third-party financing addendum. This is the last document that I'm going to go to in depth, and then there's a few others that I'm going to show you that I think are going to be really helpful and relevant. And so the third-party financing addendum essentially tells the selling party how you are financing your home purchase. there are several options that we can check here on this document. We can say that we're doing conventional financing, taking a VA loan, FHA, USDA, etc. Most of the time, the majority of my home buyers choose to go with a conventional loan. Every now and then I will work with a veteran and they will get a VA loan, which is wonderful. I'm a huge fan. If you have questions about a VA loan, leave a comment. I would love to answer them. I think they are absolutely wonderful. So let's say for this example, we are taking a conventional loan. So we would check conventional. Then we would say that you are getting a mortgage, which is the sum that you are financing for this home due in normally 30 years. You could be getting a 15-year loan, that's fine. We would outline that there. Then we then share the interest rate that you are getting, and then we repeat the length of the loan. So we're being super thorough here, and we're telling the seller how you are financing your home purchase. If we jump down to paragraph 2A, this is where we tell the seller if our offer is contingent on your financing approval or not. The reason that you would choose your offer not being contingent on a financial approval is if you already have a loan that has been completely underwritten and the lender is 100% sure that you are going to close. This essentially tells the seller that we are serious, we have more skin in the game, and you are good to go. That's basically a high-level explanation of the third-party financing addendum. Obviously, you guys, I'm not an attorney, and if you want actual legal guidance on what these documents say, obviously go talk to a real estate attorney and see what they say. The next document I'm going to show you just very quickly is a seller's disclosure. The one that we have here is 9 pages long. This is for a client of mine's home that they just sold. The home is fairly new. It was built in 2018 and it's been very well maintained. This is essentially where the seller tells the buyer what comes with the home, what's going on with it, if there have been any repairs, if it needs any repairs. Every home is going to be a bit different. This particular seller's disclosure is very clean and very straightforward since the home is so new and it's been very well taken care of. Lastly, I had mentioned the property survey, which is something that can potentially be negotiated if it's needed. A home survey is essentially a legal drawing of the property, and it shows where the house sits on the land along with easements, driveways. This particular survey shows that there is an oversized shed over here on the right side of the property. It shows where the driveway connects with the street and where the building lines are. This particular survey is from the early 80s, so a newer one would look a little bit different. But at the end of the day, all surveys tell you exactly what the bounds are and where your property sits and what's yours and what you can do within it. So once we get all of these documents filled out and signed, we send them over to the selling party. Once we submit our offer, the selling party can choose to accept our offer as is, they can turn it down, or they can counter it. More often than not, the selling party will try to counter our offer. Once we come to an agreement, we are officially under contract, and that's when the clock starts ticking. Like I mentioned earlier, once we are officially under contract, the buyer has to turn in 2 checks, the earnest and the option money. That's when we do our inspections, and immediately after going under contract is when I will send my home buyer clients an email outlining very specific next steps. In this email, we outline deadlines and also share inspector information so we can get an inspector out to the house right away. Our option period begins the day after the full contract has been executed. So let's say the buying party and the selling party both sign the contract and come to an agreement Tuesday night. Wednesday morning is when the clock starts ticking, and that is day 1 of your option period. We will know Tuesday when we are about to go under contract, and I strongly encourage my home buyer clients to start calling inspectors before we officially go under contract so we can get somebody out immediately so we don't waste time. I mentioned in part 1 of this video series that when we are looking at homes, I like to point out deficiencies that could potentially pop up. However, an inspector, of course, is going to do a much more thorough job and give us a much more detailed report with all of their findings. Most inspection reports can be anywhere from like 40 to I've seen 70 pages sometimes. Inspectors include a lot of pictures, a lot of details, and they almost make it seem like the home is falling apart. On the same note, the inspectors that I've worked with have always been very honest. Sometimes the home can look like it's literally falling apart in the report, but he'll tell you like, no, this is actually a good home. These are little items and deficiencies that can easily be addressed down the line while still maintaining the integrity and safety of the home. I have had inspectors tell clients before that they shouldn't move forward with this purchase because the repairs are just too much. And that's something I think that we can all respect and appreciate. Of course, you'll be out the inspection money, but I would rather that we all know any expensive thing that could potentially come up instead of diving in blindly and hoping for the best. Once we get through the inspection, we will review the inspection together and pinpoint the main items that are of greatest concern. We can ask the seller to have those items repaired, or we can ask for credit to have them repaired after closing. Personally, I prefer to get a credit for my clients so they can choose who does the repairs and make sure that it's done to their liking. Once we have negotiated credits and any repairs, etc., that might need to be done, and we are out of our option period, really the next thing we we are waiting for is the appraisal. The lender sends out a third party called the appraiser. They take a look at the home to make sure it is worth the money that you are being lent. So let's say you're buying a $600,000 home. The appraiser will go into the home and look at comparables around the neighborhood that have sold, I think, within the last year to make sure that it is worth the money that you are borrowing. One of three things can happen with an appraisal. The first thing that can happen is that the appraiser can go in, takes a look at the home and says, yep, it's worth the price that you are paying. So in this example, it was a $600,000 home. He says it's worth 600, we're good to go. We can usually close in a week or so. The other thing that can happen is that the appraiser can go into the house, run his report and say, I actually think this home is worth less than what you are paying for it. So again, $600,000 home, and he says it's worth $590,000, then normally in this market, we would go back and try to renegotiate with the seller to see if they will come down on price. You as a buyer also have the right to walk away from the contract. I think it is within 3 days, and you will get your earnest money, your $6,000 back. Lastly, the final thing that can happen with an appraisal is that the appraiser goes and takes a look at everything, runs his report, and he says, actually, your house is worth more than what you are paying for. So finally, we have a $600,000 home, and let's say he says it's worth $615,000. That is awesome. That means you have $15,000 in equity. We don't do anything, nothing changes. We take that report, we thank him, and then we roll ourselves over to closing. Most of the time, closing will take place at a title company. We go in, usually in the morning, we sign our documents. The last couple of years, I've found that signing documents to buy a new home usually takes half an hour to 45 minutes. It's actually pretty quick. The title person goes back, makes copies of the documents, they send everything over to the lender, and then normally within a couple of hours, you have the key to your new home. And then you are a homeowner and you can start this beautiful new chapter in your life. So you guys, that is my crash course on buying your first home in Austin. I know that was a lot of information, and I feel like I could have dug really deep into some of these little nuanced things, but I wanted to keep it high level-ish without this becoming a 3-hour video. So if you guys have more questions, do reach out in the comments because I want to make sure to address them. And if I get the same question enough times, I could just make another video answering that question. So let me know. It's super important for me to know what you guys need as well. That is all, you guys. I'm Daphne Quay, your boss lady realtor. Till next time.